everyone, welcome to this video. My name is Anushka Gandhi and in today's video we are going to talk about the average expenses which you can expect to pay when you come here as an international student or as an immigrant here in Canada. So these expenses are going to be very subjective. They're very personal to every individual because it totally depends upon where and how much you intend to spend and on what stuff. So it's going to be totally respective to every individual, but in this video we're going to talk about the average expenses which you would have to consider when you come here in Canada. And I'm also going to give you a reference of how much I had to spend back in the time when I was a new student here. So without wasting any further time, let's get started with this video. Before we dive right into the video, just a disclaimer, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button because you're going to find a lot of informative stuff here. Now let's start by talking about the living expenses or the accommodation here in Canada. Now it totally depends upon where you're situated. If you are located near the main city area of that particular city, which is also known as the downtown, you should expect to pay a little on the higher side because the downtowns are usually expensive than the rest of the city area. So it depends on that. Moreover, it also depends on where and how you choose to live. For example, if you're someone who is very much concerned about your privacy and you would prefer to live in your own particular room and would not want to share your room with someone, that room expense is going to be double the cost of if you happen to share the room with someone else, if you know what I mean. Whereas if you're someone who wants the entire apartment for yourself because you do not want to share even the common passages with anyone, then you could expect to pay 4 times the price which an average individual or an average student here pays. So this is how it usually segregates: a shared room, a personal room, and a personal apartment. So this is how you can have 3 different options. If you choose to share your room with someone on an average in Ontario, you could expect to pay about $200 to $400 for a shared room. Whereas if you are someone who wants to have the entire room for yourself, you could expect to pay around $400 to $800 for that room every month. If you are someone who wants the entire apartment for yourself, you could expect, now it depends on how big the apartment is. If it's just 1 bedroom apartment, it's going to be around $1,200 to $1,500. If it's even more, the price is going to go up. And the accommodation doesn't end there because you have to also take care of the utilities, which are the hydro, the water, the gas. So for that, it depends on what the deal is. If you have got a deal wherein everything is included, you would not have to pay anything on top of it. Whereas if you have been asked to pay for it, you need to make sure that on an average, the utility for per person would be anywhere around $20 to $100 depending on the usage and depending on what the weather outside is. For example, if it's winter out there, you could expect to keep the gas on and stuff like that. So you would have the heat on. So you would definitely drain a lot of hydro there. Whereas if in summers, you're someone who wants to keep it cool all the time, if you're someone who always stay indoor, you would again expect to pay a little more of the hydro there. So that is how utilities count in the accommodation. So choose wisely. So I always recommend that whenever you choose an accommodation, always make sure that utilities are included because then you do not have to, it's a one-time payment of that accommodation cost and you would not have to get stressed for the usage of the utilities which you do on top of it, and you do not have to keep a control on that because eventually we are students and some of us might be staying away from our homes for the first time, so we would not be very particular about switching off the lights or switching off the air conditioning. So it's always better to have it included, so even if you happen to use it a little more, you do not have to be a lot worried about it because there's the landlord who's going to take care of that, and you would not have to pay it out of your pocket, especially during the times when you would have your pocket very light, you know what I mean. Okay, so that's how the accommodation part plays the role. Again, the prices which I have mentioned are on an average, so you could get a better deal, you could get an expensive deal, but that is an on an average price of accommodation here in Canada, in the Ontario province of Canada. In terms of my accommodation cost, when I was new here for the first year, I spent $210 for a shared room. So yes, I shared my room because I wanted to use my money wisely back then. And after a year, I got my own personal room, which was of $480, and both of these were located in Kitchener-Waterloo region. Now, next up is the transit cost, which is also the cost of traveling within the city or from one city to other. Here we're going to focus majorly on traveling within the city, because when you're a student here, you would not really go far off from your place of residence. So you would just focus upon traveling from your home to your college, university, or just for groceries and stuff. So in that case, you need to know that every city here has got its own transit system. For example, here in Kitchener-Waterloo region, we've got the GRT transit, which is the Grand River Transit, and they've got these monthly passes, or you could also pay some coins in order to travel through these buses or the trams. You have to make sure that before you hop on to buying these monthly passes, you need to ask your college or your university, because there's most colleges and universities here would provide you the free passes for traveling, which are actually not free. They would be cutting off the money from your college fees, or that basically it's included in your college fees. So you always have to confront that with your college before going ahead and buying that as soon as you come here. Secondly, if your college doesn't happen to provide you with that, if it doesn't include that in your college fee, you can always go and ask for the student discounts, because here there is a lot of trend wherein they give you some student discount for each product, so for every product basically. So you can always ask them if there is any. As long as I remember, a year ago I used to pay $90 every month for the GRT pass here. Now, the next we're going to talk about is the food expenses. Now, it totally depends from person to person on what your diet is and how much healthy you prefer, or what kind of, or if you prefer to eat a lot outside. Because I remember when we came here on the day one itself, we started preparing food at our home. So it's only reason is we are students and we would not want to spend a lot of money, because food outside is expensive and you would be living on your GIC expenses, and you would not want to spend a lot of money, at least until you become financially stable, at least until you find a good part-time job here. So for that reason, you should start cooking at home. The groceries here would range, your monthly expense would range between $150 to $300 to $400, totally depending upon what diet you prefer. If you're someone who is non-vegetarian, who prefers to buy a lot of meat, the meat expenses are going to be definitely higher than the vegetables. So, or again, if you're someone who wants to eat a lot of fruits and stuff, yeah, definitely expenses are going to go a little on the higher side. Besides, there are some students who prefer to start the tiffin services, because there are a lot of providers here. The tiffin services are usually ranging between $140 to around $250 for one meal every day and 20 meals every month. So you still have to spend something over it, because for the rest of the 10 days, and then again if you're preferring to have a good breakfast, lunch, so basically you could expect to pay somewhere between $200 to $400 every month as a student for your food. Now, there are also some miscellaneous expenses which we usually tend to ignore, but they're still there in disguise. For example, if you come here in the winter season, you would have to pay for your snow boots, for your snow jackets, and they are going to cost you a good $200 to $300, because again, I understand it's the one-time investment, but you still have to consider that for at least your first month. Besides, when you come here, you need to buy a good SIM card. A SIM card could cost you a good $25 to $70 or even more, even $140 if you decide to buy a new phone along with the phone plan, the SIM plan. So you need to choose your plan wisely, because you need to understand one thing, that there is a public Wi-Fi almost at every store here in Canada. So if you're going outdoor, you would have that access. So just try to buy a plan with a decent amount of data and a calling plan, because that's going to be sufficient for you initially, as long as you're not traveling a lot, you don't have your part-time job yet. Once you have that, you can definitely go back and upgrade your plan to any plan which you prefer. If you prefer good data, you can definitely do that, but initially try to keep your expenses very friendly, very pocket friendly. Now, lastly, I would like to mention about those shiny objects which you would want to stay away from, because I totally understand that when we come to a new country, we would want to blend in with the people, with the locals as quickly as we could, or just follow the local trends here and observe and imitate how people here usually behave. So in Canada, you would see a lot of trend of people drinking coffees at the coffee shops, or just hanging around in some fast food joints, or just traveling using Uber, or ordering food online using food apps like Uber Eats. This all is nothing but attractive but expensive. So as a student, I would not recommend you doing that. An easy option for Uber is just to get a local ride. There are a lot of ride share options here which you could get onto. Besides, instead of ordering food online, you could just go into that shop and save your service tax, or just save your delivery fee and get it by yourself, because you already have your free transit pass. The best option is to cook your food by yourself at home, but if you happen to skip that someday and you would want to eat outside, just walk to that place and get it by yourself, because that's how you're going to save good $5 to $10 for that particular food. Besides, I know there's a lot of trend of drinking coffee outside and going to the coffee shop. It's very cool. I know you're going to do it at some point. I do it all the time now. But when I was new here, I would always carry my coffee and my snack along with me from my home. Because even if you think that it's just a couple of dollars for a coffee, at the end of the month, you would end up spending good $200-300, which you would not want to do. So these are some things which I wanted to mention, because it happens to all, not just you. You're not someone who is unique. It happens to everyone who comes here. So just try to stay away from these shiny objects and keep your expenses on point, because eventually, I promise, you're going to blend in well, and you're going to you're going to stay in a good place, and you're going to travel by your own car. But at the moment, just don't have those shiny objects in your mind. Just stay average, keep your expenses okay, and once you're financially stable, you can hop onto some of those things. So I hope you like this video. If you would want to ask any question to me, feel free to reach out, comment down below, and I would be happy to help. For more such video, follow my content, just subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and I'll see you back in my next video then. Until then, goodbye.